Hey there, everybody. What's happening? I'm Jay, smarthelping.com here. What I'm going to do is build a rent roll template. It's free. The link below in the description you can get if you want to check it out. I'm going to show you how to build it here live. Um, Before I get started, I've done all kinds of real estate underwriting templates. If you want to see more of that, you can go to smarthelping.com under the real estate tab. I've got, hotel, assisted living, mobile home park, multifamily, unit-based acquisition models, rental property calculators, Airbnb arbitrage, value add, self-storage, mixed use, seller financing, short-term rentals. This is a popular one. So I've done nearly all these. Well, like like a lot of these have acquisition logic and rent roll logic in it. Definitely the multifamily one, uh, and all these are based on some kind of rent roll or improvement in rent roll over time after acquisition. But what I'm going to show you today, let's get into it, is a general rent roll. I'm going to try to make this for general use. It could be multifamily, it could be self-storage, mixed use, whatever. I'm just going to do a basic generic template. We'll do some best in practice formatting, and I'll show you some tips here on the best way to do it. So rent roll. Um, First thing is the description of unit, whatever that might be. And we're actually we're gonna freeze columns here, and it's it's pretty nice. It's a nice feature if you're doing all your sums at the top and then your rent rolls are down, especially if it's a template that you reuse because, some things might have 5 or 6 unit types, others might have 1,000. And so you need to be able to not have to keep moving your summaries all around as you have different data. So that it's best to put it at the top and then have your data going down like this. So we'll do, type 1 unit, type 2 unit, etc. So this could be like 2 beds, 1 bath, or whatever the units are called. And we're actually gonna go down. We'll just pick arbitrary number like 1,300 here, just enough that it's overkill. Because I mean, you could have more than this, honestly, but that's enough for this purpose. Now the formulas, I'm just formatting this, but for the formulas, I'll go down like, like 10,000. That's definitely overkill. Um, I'll make all this text blue, royal blue. Okay. Actually, I don't want the formatting to get all funky if it goes down a million rows. Okay, good. Yeah, that's all I want. And then we'll just format this. So we've got description of unit, whatever it might be. You've got unit count. So if you were doing every individual unit, you would just be putting ones here. But if you were doing like, I've got 5 of these units, 100 of these, 30 of these, etc., you can put that there. Also, we're going to remove grid lines. We'll just copy this formatting, unit count. Now, what's going to be important about this is you're taking the sum totals, and then that's what you use for your pro forma. So let's say 5, 3, 2, etc. Rent roll template. Um, let's just do a couple more. So you've got description, unit count. Now, on rent rolls, especially if it's an acquisition model, if it's not an acquisition model, that's fine too. If you're just building a new construction, then you can put whatever. Well, you'll see as we get down into it. But so unit count, Now, if I know how many of each unit there are, I need to know the square foot, especially if it's self-storage, or mixed use, or something where you're defining the rent based on the rent per square foot, uh, per month or per year. So this is going to be usually a bigger number. Let's say these units are 700 square feet. And then there's some other ones that are, let's say, 400, 1200, 1000. And we'll do some formatting here to, everyone likes the little dash if it's a 0. And then same with the unit count. And it's basically just an accounting format without a dollar symbol or decimals. Okay. So we've got unit count, square foot. Now what we want to put next would be current occupied units. And let's say, actually, let's just paste this down. Occupied units current. Now this is not relevant if it is developed a development, but that's okay. You'll see how it flows in the end. So we got description, unit count, square foot, occupied units, current. Then we want to put current monthly rent. Some other totals we're definitely going to want here are, let's see, I'll just put this at like 5,000. So unit count, total square feet, occupied units, and we could put just random numbers. Current monthly rent. Now here, I'm going to use a currency so we can tell the difference between square feet. But we do want this, so we'll just do this version with the dollar symbol. Dang it. Okay. So let's say the monthly rent for these is some number. I'm just putting in random numbers here. So I have current monthly rent. Now this is going to be a weighted average. There's no reason to sum up this. Let's say some of these are more. Depending on what they are. Okay, so we have weighted average rent. Simply go sum product. G8 to, we'll just go down to 2,500. And then we do the unit count here as the other side of it. And then divided by sum of D8 to D2,500. And so that's the weighted average. So what that weighted average tells you is that's how much on average you're charging per unit if you wanted to calculate the total monthly rent. So here, I should be able to say this times total units, $126,000 a month. And that should be the same as if I multiply the rent times the current. And this is before occupancy. See, that's the same number, 126,850 if you sum it up. Okay, so we have average monthly rent. These are subtotal row. Actually, let's give these, there we go. Okay, so what else do we need? Well, we know in this case we can say occupied units, improvement in occupancy, and then we would take the weighted average amount and multiply that by the units that we think are going to be occupied over time. And then we could do it like a stabilized occupancy. We're not getting into that's in my main models that logic is in. This is just going to be for rent roll, but that's how you would use it in this case. Now you could also put monthly rent per square foot. And in this case, the number is a calculation, so we'll put a gray with black text, and we'll say if air, otherwise take the monthly rent divided by the square feet. So there, and that's definitely going to have decimals. So there's the rent per square foot per month. So 250 a month, or 250 a square foot. If you multiply this by the square feet, you get the monthly rent. So that's another number, and this you'll want the average, weighted average rent per square foot. And again, you just take this total and then against the unit count. And then that number should tell you, oh, wait. Why is that so low? Ah, let's put both of these over here. There we go, 210. So in theory, if I multiply $2.10 times the total square feet, I get 11,328. Now, hold on, does that make sense? No. This needs to be, I believe the square foot should be the correct denominator. So $1.40. I don't do a lot of square foot basis. Usually I use the monthly rent roll, the monthly amount. But square foot is definitely an option too, so we want to put that in here. So let's think about this. So this times here is 500, right? So there's our total. Now, what was I doing before? Because I felt like the number was higher before. This times this. Yeah, 126. This is per unit. This is, so this is per unit. So to get this, we'd actually multiply $1.40 per square foot times the number of units. And then we would also need to multiply by the square foot, the average square foot per unit, which we don't have here. Here we have total. So on top of this, I'd put another row up here and say the weighted average square foot is, and see, this can get complicated. So we'll go 2,500 here, 2,500 here, down to 2,500 divided by this. Okay, so now I have weighted average square foot per unit. Put a note on that. So if I wanted to calculate the total monthly rent, I take the average rent per square foot times not the total square feet, the weighted average square feet per unit times the total units. Now that's not matching either. What is going on here? Let's think. So this is right. This is average square foot because if I multiply this times the unit count, I get 70,000. Oh my goodness. Okay, no, it's my fault. This is the square feet per unit. This number we want here. This number went over here, this number here. So this is the average square foot per unit based on this, but we want to know total square feet. You have to multiply this times the unit count. So this is the total square footage. We'll go down to 2,500. 70,000 square feet in this case, and that's why my numbers were all messed up. So hopefully that helps you as you can see how I'm calculating and errors I make, and then that should help. So now let's go $1.40 per square foot times total square feet. This 98,000. Now is that the same as monthly rent times their units? No, it's closer. Let's see. So monthly rent divided by square foot is the rent per square feet. Current monthly rent per unit. Let's also put in total rent per type, which is just this amount times the total units. Now this can be just summed up. 126,850. So that's the right number. And these are calculations. So the question is, what are we out here? So we have a rent per square foot, monthly rent per square foot. In theory, that should equal our total rent, but it's not. So something's wrong with the math here. I'm just trying to think. Let's see. Weighted average. It has to do with this weighted average, I think. So I want the average rent per square foot. I guess not based on a square foot in each unit, but by the count. Maybe it is the count. Oh, no, that number's too high. Because I want to be able to multiply this times the total square foot, and this should be the total rent roll, which 126,850. That's the right number. That's the right number. Now the question is, how do I get a weighted average rent per square foot? We know this is right. This is the rent per square foot. The correct weighted average is what I want, though. And I know it can be distilled down into something. I could just take the total rent divided by the total square feet. And now that's the right number. Maybe that's the only way you can actually mathematically do it. So H divided by E. and that's probably the same number as this divided by this is also the same as H divided by E, $1.80. So either way, I don't think there is a way to distill the numbers here into a weighted average that makes sense because there's two calculations that go into to it. So that's fine. So $1.80 per square foot. So 70,000 square feet, $1.80. This is my total rent. Okay, so this makes sense. Let's make these light white, lighter gray. I can't do it. Let's make that white because these top totals are going to be gray. All right, well, we're making progress here. So we have unit count, square foot, total square feet, occupied units. Now I might want to move this over because we want to put in here market rent, or I mean current rent, total rent per unit, total rent per type, monthly rent per square foot, and now we have occupied units, and we need occupancy. So here, if error, we take the total occupied units divided by the total units for each type. Drag this down. And our weighted average occupancy is just the total occupied units divided by total unit count. So we're 46% occupancy. Now on this, we can say occupied occupied square feet would be, in theory, 46% times that, which is 32,000 square feet. And if you multiply that by the rent per square foot, you have 58,000. Now that 58,000 should be the same as the occupied unit amount times the rent per month here. And it is 58,250, so you can see how that math works there, and that's how you can start with a base, essentially what you're currently getting in rent, and then how you'd improve it is more into the pro forma stuff that we're not going to do here. Okay, so occupied units, occupancy. What else is important here? Well, we definitely want to say we want to do what's the current, because you're likely, if this is acquisition, you're going to be doing what's the market rent. And maybe the market rent's a bit higher than this. Let's just say, just on average, we'll just say this is this times 1.2. So here's the market rents. And that is then a weighted average. Let's do this against total units that there are. So right now, the weighted average rent per unit is 1335. Market is 1602. And then we can also do market rent per square feet. Now, market rent per square feet, we say, is the total rent divided by the square foot of each of these. Okay. Notice how we're keeping all the calculations in black text with white background, and every input would be blue text with yellow. Now, the weighted average here is going to be same calculation we did with this, and we'll take the weighted average rent per unit divided by the weighted average square foot per unit. So $2.16 for the market. And again, if you multiply that by the total units occupied, whoop, times the square feet, we get 152. So in theory, this is saying the market rent per month is 152,000. And let's put this in the same order that this is in. So we have rent per unit, then we have this calculation for market rent per type, which is just this times this. There's your 152. So occupied units, occupancy, market rent per type, market rent per square foot. What else do we have here? So we want to put, so this is what it currently is getting. This is what the market can get. And then you're going to come in as an acquisition and say, now this doesn't have to be an acquisition. If it's just a rent roll for a new construction, you would just put in what I'm about to put in for what you expect to charge as your main outputs only, and you'll see as we go. So let's see, where was I? Oh, so now we have this. We want to put this as year one expected rent per unit, year one rent per type, and this is per month, and year one rent per square foot per month. This is all per month. Per month, market rent per square foot per month. This is all per month. Okay. Now, wait, what changed? Year one rent per month. What happened here? Oh, I haven't done these yet. So expected rent. So this is where you're going to put some, either it could be higher or lower than the market. Let's say you're actually going to just bring it a little bit almost to market. So let's say we'll do market times 0.9. And then in the pro forma, you probably put something like expected improvement in rents for like year one, two, or year two and three, maybe four, and then some stabilized growth in rent. There's a lot of different ways to do that, but for this, we just want to show what's our expected. What are we actually going to charge? So this is what's currently being charged, $1.80 per square foot. The market is $2.16. And then we're going to say, if we do this, let's see what the numbers be. Total rent by square feet. We're going to go $1.95. So higher than what it is existing, but lower than the market in this case. And again, these are just made up numbers. So this is, we'll label these. This is in place. In place rent. Then this is market rent. And this is suggested or planned rent after acquisition. Now again, if it were a new build, you just put in your suggested rent here, and these sections would not be relevant. You still want to put in your unit count and square foot. And let's see, this is a calculation column. You still want your rent in square feet in there, but you wouldn't basically fill this out. You could put in the market rent for sure, but you wouldn't need to put this in. We'll give these a thick box here. Okay, so these are all really important. Let's give all these actually a box so you can really tell the difference. And then based on your occupied units, 44, we would put in 46% occupancy. We would say, well, for charging, we want to charge $1.95. In the model, I would say, okay, so the year one rent for the pro forma is $1.95 times the total square feet times the current occupancy. Now this occupancy, so we're getting 63,000, which if you divide this by this is 46%, which is the occupancy rate. So that all is making sense. Now the reason you're doing, and you could, this occupancy number, you can use this as a reference, or you can say, well, actually, my expected occupancy is going to be some other number. And the occupancy could be whatever you define for year one in each month. And then year two, you can define a new occupancy rate, or you could do some formulas to do it automated by, maybe over a 10-year period. You don't want to have to put in every month. You can do that stuff. And you can also adjust the rent per square foot over time. So now you're not looking at units, you're looking at rent per square foot and the percentage of the total square feet that you're occupying. So what changes is this number can change, this square foot does not change, and then the occupancy rate changes. And that's what drives your total. That's how you condense this down into like one or, a potential rent, an occupancy, lost occupancy, and then gross rent over time. So that's all you really need to do a pro forma, and that's how you show like current rent roll. Let's see, are we missing anything? So description, unit count, square feet, current monthly rent 126, market's 152. We're going to start at 136 in this case. I guess that's probably about all you need. And here's all your summaries, so you can see this is an important number, so we'll box that. This is an important one so you can see what's currently doing. And yeah, and the occupied units would just be a function of your occupancy improvement. This is not going to account for additional units being built over time. For that, you would have to do a second rent roll and show those units in it'll be its own module. Let's see. I believe this is good. I believe we're good here. These numbers maybe we make a little bit bigger. So we're going in at $1.95 a square foot. Use the occupancy. You definitely want to know the markets. You want to know the suggested amounts. I think we're good. Let's do actually give this a full. I'm gonna put a right border on here. Or does it look better like that? Maybe just a whole entire box on each section. The main numbers that are important are the monthly rent total out of all the units and what the market is actually is on that. And usually if an acquisition you're going in, you're going to make some improvements and you're going to raise the rent. So you definitely want to see these two comparisons. And this is, again, this is fully occupied, fully occupied, fully occupied. Now we could put some ancillary schedules in here to say like, um, let's see, how do we want to do this? I don't want to make this any. Do I have room over here maybe? I could put in, ancillary schedules, current monthly rent, current annual rent, or in place, either way, same thing. So these would be important to see, and for that you would just do um, you can do it a couple different ways. We can just say this is the units times square foot or rent per month per square unit, so 58,000, which that should be 46%, right? So that's monthly. Here's the annual of that. So this is just to see like what is the current situation of the current um, owner. What are they getting? So they're getting this per month, this per year. We'll put current net rental income. And then we could also put in now market net. This is an interesting one. Market net rental income would tell you based on the occupancy rate, if you were charging the market rate, what would your rents be? So in this case, I would say my market rent is 152,000 times the occupancy rate. And these numbers can be accounting here. And let's see, does that make sense? So if I had average rent per is 1,600 times 44, 7,502, that's that number. Okay, so that math checks out. And then we could also, then we want to say expected pro forma rental income year one. So what you expect to get in the first year. And that number is just, again, we could just take this average rent per square foot per unit times expected rental units occupied. Because that's not really, we're showing the occupancy here, but we're not showing what the actual rent is based on this occupancy anywhere. Now, here's the totals of it. We could add it in here and say, we could put in by every unit type the in place current rent, the market rent, and the suggested rent, and do it by occupancy as well. And then you'd get these totals, but based on sections like this. Now, is that necessary? I'm trying to think how necessary that would be. I don't know. I'll take suggestions in the comments if you think that you want to see that in here as a base template for as default template. I could put in what's the actual, based on these occupancy rates, what's the actual rent for each unit type and the actual square foot rented. Well, actually that'd be the same. It'd just be the total rent divided by the square foot occupied. So it'd be the same number as these, so that wouldn't change. Like here, we'd say, well, If I'm getting $58,000 a month and I divide that by, I'm not dividing it by the total square feet because that number, that's the occupied rent per square foot. But if we're saying only 46% is occupied, so I'm getting actually this divided by that. Oh, what did I do? 58,000 divided by this $1.80. It's still the $1.80. So we don't need to, that won't change. Anything else on this rent roll that's important? And this is pretty broad. Again, you could use this for self-storage, multifamily. We've got thousands of rows. If you want to do now, if all these were single units, that's fine. Let's say these were all just one units like this. That's fine. It's just this number and this number end up being the same. The market rent per unit is the same as the total rent, and all the numbers still make sense. Now here you can see the rent per square foot's changing. Why? Well, because now, before we had 44 units at 400, but we had 33 units at 1200. So it was a little bit of a different makeup. Having one of each with these square foots, it's now a little bit different. Now we only have 5,400 total square feet. The average rent per unit in place is 1,079. Before it was 1,372, so it's a little bit higher because we had more weight in the 1,200 range. Even though we had 44 at 400, oh no, we had 44 at 1,200. These are the square foot. So you had a little bit more weight at these higher rents. Then if I put one on all of them, then that takes that weight away. So this is good. I'm just trying to play with these to make sure the math is all right here. I think we're good. So you could use this. It's got these numbers to use for your starting pro forma. You can also use these percentages of occupancy, this rent per square foot. All these go into the pro forma. And I guess that's all I got for you. So this is a free rent roll template. Again, feel free to check out smarthelping.com. I've got fully functional real estate underwriting spreadsheets and templates here. Just go to smarthelping.com on the real estate tab. Note, if you buy anything, you can buy individually, but if you buy the bundle, any template I ever add to this bundle, you will have access to with no extra charge. Now this template, I'll put the free template in the free templates section here. It'll be a Google Sheet, but it works the same way as Excel. You can always download the Google Sheet to Excel if you want, and it will work fine. These are all just basic math calculations. All right, I think that's everything I need to do here. I believe. I think we're good. I think we're good. All right. Well, I'll see you guys on the next one. Enjoy.